So today I'm so pleased to to present the following guests to you. The first one is Kevin Lunzalo, who is the regional coordinator of GYBN Africa. And then Chantal Robichaud from the CBD Secretariat will be representing the executive secretary of the CBD. And then I'll also be introducing, we also have Simangele Msweli from the Africa Wildlife Foundation, will be representing Fred Kwame Kuma, who is the AWF Vice President of Global Leadership Team. So in this regard, please allow me to introduce to you Kevin Lunzalo to present key messages from the summit and the next steps for GYBN Africa. So at this juncture, I'll just hand it over to Kevin so that you take us through your presentation.
Thank you so much, John Van. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Lunzalo. I am the co-founder of the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network, and I am also one of the organizers of what has been an amazing 3-day summit, the African Youth Summit on Biodiversity. I sit on the coordination team of GYBN Africa, and I'm here to present the highlights of the summit to you all. John Van, please confirm if you are able to see my screen.
Yes, Kelvin, I can see your screen.
All right, so as I mentioned before, this summit started 2 days ago. Today is the 3rd day, and it has been quite an amazing experience. In terms of statistics, we had over 1,000 people registered for this summit. We had an organic reach of over 650,000 people through our social media main hashtag, which was AYSB 2022. And just a recap of what took place is that on the first day, we had a tone setting session, an intro session with a very powerful panel where we had opening remarks from our partners and young people, followed by an overview of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework of the UN CBD, where we discussed the progress so far and how young people have been engaged in the dialogues that have built up the process. We also enjoyed the screening of the Size of Our Own film, and we had a question and answer session that followed from one of the film directors. And then to cut the day off, we had a workshop where young people had an opportunity to express what they want to see in the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. So this was an interactive online session where young people took to design tools to present their ambitions and what they want to see included in this framework moving forward. And then we came to yesterday, which was the 2nd day of this summit, and we were discussing the state of biodiversity in Africa. What are the opportunities and challenges that are presenting themselves in terms of biodiversity conservation in the continent of Africa? We also had a session on African youth spearheading action related to biodiversity conservation, where we learned the actions, on-ground actions that young people are taking in their various capacities to conserve this continent's biodiversity. We had several side events, and one of them was an inclusive engagement of young people in biodiversity conservation, where we were discussing the urgency, how do we overcome barriers that arise, and then the inclusion of marginalized groups, including indigenous communities and local people in the conversations around biodiversity conservation. And then we had an engaging session on ocean conservation and the whole issue around the 30 by 30 ambition that some parties and stakeholders have presented to the front of conservation dialogues. And one of the key issues in this session was how do we arrive at these ambitious targets? Where do we get this space, and what is the place of indigenous communities and local people in this discussion? And then we had another separate session where we were discussing the most important issue of digital sequencing and on genetic resources. The day two didn't just end there. We had another session on climate action. As you all understand, the issue of biodiversity loss and climate change are interrelated. And so in order to arrive at a solution that tackles both, we need to harness synergies in the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. And this is why we had this deliberately to discuss how do we arrive at a nexus between biodiversity conservation and tackling climate change. And then we had another session on the voices of young people, how they are involved in biosphere reserves, as well as programs that are supporting engagement of youth in various levels in conservation as conservationists or stewards of our biosphere reserves. And then lastly, but not least, we had the upcoming APAC session where we were discussing how young people in Africa can take part in the upcoming IUCN Africa Protected Areas Congress, which is mostly known as APAC, as well as the opportunities to engage in the same. Today, which is the last day, has been all about, or largely about money, and we have been talking about the opportunities that are presented in biodiversity conservation in terms of economy, money. So what is the value of conservation? And it was really insightful to learn that there are so many opportunities beyond just tourism that present to themselves to young people in terms of biodiversity conservation in Africa. And the session that just ended a few minutes ago, we were talking about how young people can actively engage in multilateral negotiations and dialogues. So after doing all that, how do we get away from here? What's the roadmap from here, and how does the future look like? So the first thing that we are working on is a youth action plan and a youth position paper that is informed by the discussions that we've been having over the last couple of days. And we are also looking at frequent training sessions to fill in the knowledge gaps that we have observed, especially on the understanding of the post-2020 global biodiversity framework and its provision. We are also hoping that this summit will not just be a one-off event, but rather an annual event where we can engage with each other and have several intergenerational dialogues and keep on building to the hopeful success of the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. It was agreed that for this to happen, probably we need to align the summit dates with some of the policy negotiations that build to the CBD post-2020, either through the COPs or through the intermediary meetings, the SOPSAs, the SPIs. And lastly, we cannot achieve this without of course, having the resources to do that. So we are still committed to realizing the resources that will go towards supporting these capacity building sessions and other annual summits. So we are calling upon all stakeholders to partner with us in this journey. I'll just highlight a few very quick comments and quotes that came from the summit. No one can speak for African landscapes better than the people who live and interact with them every day. It's our role as African youth to support African conservation narratives. The summit has provided an opportunity and platform for youth to align messages, values, and pathways, for youth to be effective in their advocacy efforts in the post-2020 and multilateral engagement agreements at large. They need to know who to engage, when and where to engage. The most effective point being the national focal points. Lastly, we had a commitment from AWF that they are going to support 50 young people to attend the upcoming ICN African Park Congress. And they have also launched a program that's geared towards building the capacity of 15 additional young people on policy negotiation. And we are also celebrating some of our most active participants for this summit. And just to spotlight 3 of them, I know we had hundreds of participants during the length of this summit, but here are just a few of them. Muindi Maingi, Ben Richard Sanosi, and Lorien Kabaka. They have been actively attending the sessions, engaging the speakers, asking questions, and even helping other participants during this summit. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And I just join you to congratulate Muindi, Ben, and Lorraine, and also participants. I'm not sure which day or which session really excited you. From my end, I think the Sides of Our Own excited me so much because it's a storytelling, it took a storytelling format. And I think now that you're talking about intergenerational dialogues, looking at the past, being at the present, and then forging ahead, I think storytelling is really powerful in documenting most of the conservation and biodiversity initiatives. So at this moment, not sure if Simangele is ready, but if Simangele is ready, I'll hand it over to Simangele so that she can give us a reflection on the summit, key messages, as well as the next steps. So over to you, Simangele.
Thank you so much, Janvan, and greetings again to everyone who's here. A lot of you have seen me throughout the last 3 days moderating sessions, but today I'm really here to speak on behalf of the African Wildlife Foundation, who are the co-conveners of this summit. When we envisioned the summit alongside the colleagues at the African chapter of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, we were both aware that we don't have the solution to all of the world's problems when it comes to the biodiversity crisis. But we recognize that even though we don't have all the answers and all the skills and all the solutions, there is a role to play. One of the speakers yesterday, Knowledge from Zimbabwe, mentioned that at the end of the day, youth cannot advocate for that which they do not know or do not understand. I will add on that and say, equally, they cannot take opportunities with both hands if they don't know that those opportunities exist. So really for us as the co-conveners of the summit, we were grounded by that understanding that we may not have all the support that is required in everything, but we are able to bring together youth and connect them with experts in the field, either who come from government, from NGOs and so on, to provide information that may or may not be crucial to the work that they do, depending on how you found the sessions. So I'm really excited to see that we've come to day 3 and we've brought a range of speakers. We've had in the past days people that at the same time I'm sending appreciation to, such as Pierre from Namibia, who negotiates strongly for Africa. Letitia that we had this morning is actually also a negotiator from South Africa. We've had colleagues from fellow NGOs. We had Monifa coming from IFA on Thursday. We've had Innocent this morning coming from WWF. We've had experts coming from academia. We had Dr. Oku, who was giving us on the state of marine biodiversity. We had Frank this morning from a research institute, again on the state of wildlife economy. So for us, it gives us a great pleasure to say, even though we know we can't provide all the solutions, but we can do the little that we can to bridge these gaps. As I usually say, in the context of conservation, the CBD has a 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. The African Union has a 2063 agenda. What this means to us is that the issues we are dealing with are intergenerational in nature. You can never achieve them fully within one generation. I am slightly under 30, but once we get to 2050, I'll be so old, chances are I wouldn't be able to even stand and speak. So I and you have a responsibility to ensure that whatever we know, whatever skills, resources, and whatever frameworks we put in place, we equip the next generation to take on the baton. It's the same when you look at the African Union Agenda 2063, we are all either going to be old, that's if we are going to still be there, understanding the natural cycle of life. So with these words, what I'm emphasizing is that we are in an intergenerational mission, and our success relies on our ability to pass on the baton to those who are coming after us, in as much as it is for us to receive it from those who are currently leading. So from the side of the African Wildlife Foundation, I would love to thank everyone who's been involved. And I would love to reaffirm our commitment in supporting youth engagement in conservation in Africa. As mentioned earlier, my position is Senior Manager of the Youth Leadership Program, a program that is new, and there is evidence of our commitment as a foundation in continuing to build leadership capacity in Africa, and especially for youth. And this has been evident with some of the initiatives that have been announced this week. For instance, some of you applied for the Charles R. Wall Young African Policy Fellows Initiative, which is going to be onboarded 15 people each year to train them more in depth on engaging the CBD, as well as give them opportunity to attend the actual negotiations and support negotiators from Africa. You've also seen our commitment in supporting youth engagement in the upcoming IUCN Africa Protected Areas Congress. And I would love to stress that our commitment goes beyond things related to MEAs. Some of you may be aware that starting last year, but early this year, we reopened applications for the Benjamin Mkapa Wildlife Photography Awards, and they're still open, which is a photography competition that recognizes and showcases the beauty of Africa through photography. And I'll invite my colleagues, Cherise and Aileen, to put a link in the chat box, both in Meet and in Zoom, for those who love to take part. And there's categories for youth as well. And some of the winning pictures will get to be showcased in museums all over the world, starting in the Nairobi National History Museum, as well as moving to other continents such as the US and so on. As mentioned, that our commitment goes beyond this. For instance, we also have the Labs program, which actually trains filmmakers. And again, you can check out in our website for the next round of applications. We also have initiatives where we work with young journalists, with trainings on storytelling. One of the speakers mentioned today, and I think yesterday, that there's a need to train journalists and storytellers that understand the African context. And those are one of the things that we are interested in. So this is just a few examples of the initiatives that we have. But in closing, I would love to stress and remind everyone that we have the power to change things. I know sometimes it may look overwhelming. It may look like it's too big. It may look like the challenges are many and are complex, but I challenge you to find your space, see where you can make that difference. As small as you think it is, I promise you, it goes a long way. If you're doing it alone, of course, it may look small, but you need to always remember that we are all in this together. And there are organizations such as ours, such as the Global Youth Biodiversity Networks, such as those who came as speakers today, who are committed to work with you and contribute. Now to the commitments that and the next steps that have been presented by Gibbon Africa here, I would love to reaffirm as the foundation that we look forward to supporting the next summit as we work together to find the partners and see where it's going to be, whether it's going to be physical or virtual and so on. So congratulations to the Gibbon team for putting this together. We'll definitely be working forward with you in seeing how we make this space recurrent. We also look forward to supporting you in the recurrent trainings that you mentioned, be it connecting you with the speakers or having some of our staff joining as experts as well, be it supporting with logistics and so on. And as well as you get to the stage where you implement the convention, you are welcome to consider us as a willing partner to sit down and co-create things together and see how we work together going forward. So with that being said, thank you so much to everyone who's attended throughout the days, to the speakers, to the Gibbon team that put all of this together, and passing my greetings to Chantal from the CPD Secretariat, who have also made time to come and be with us today. So thank you, and back to you, Janvan.
Thank you, Simangele. I think I cannot emphasize much on what you've said. I think you've put it in really simple but powerful words. And I'll just echo what you've said, that the power is in our hands, and that every action that we do counts. So participants and delegates who are in the call, from the presentation that Kevin has done and the presentation from the words from Simangele, if you have any question or comment, feel free to put it on the chat box, and then we'll share it. I mean, we'll refer the question and the comments to them at a later stage. So as at now, if you allow me, I'll call upon Chantel to give us a statement from the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Chantel, over to you.
Hello. Hi, Janvan. Thank you for this Thank you for having me. So my name is Chantal Robichaud. I am working at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity in the unit on stakeholder engagement and cooperation. And in particular, I'm one of the youth focal points. So I've seen a lot of faces that are familiar this morning, and I'm very happy to meet others, and I'm very thrilled to see you in great numbers. So I'm very delighted to be here to deliver a message on behalf of the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, Ms. Elizabeth Mrema, which you probably know. So at the occasion of this closing session of the African Youth Summit on Biodiversity. Just from what I heard, it was a very successful summit, and it comes at a very important time following the negotiations of the Geneva meetings in March, a few weeks prior to the 4th working group on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, and a few months before the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, where, of course, the post-2020 is expected to be adopted. In the recent years, and despite the pandemic, biodiversity has been receiving a lot of attention, and we have seen a great momentum build up over the last few years. Citizens are more and more aware that continued biodiversity loss and degradation of ecosystem presents a fundamental risk to the capacity of ecosystems to provide essential life-sustaining services, from food security and nutrition to regulation of water, air quality, medication, but also pest and disease regulation. We need to keep building this momentum for biodiversity, and you, as young leaders, can greatly help in doing so. The fact that you're already active in implementing innovative projects on the ground demonstrates that youth are not just talking about environmental challenges. They are already agents of change, of innovative and transformative change. And this is what is needed urgently. The changes must be implemented by all actors to make the Global Biodiversity Framework a success. So it is my hope, is Elizabeth's hope, that through your active participation, this summit will have helped African youth build its capacity to take full and effective part in biodiversity discussions, but also implementation for the years ahead. It is my hope that through your leadership and willingness to replicate your knowledge in your communities, the positive impacts of the summit will be felt across Africa and beyond. In fact, we need you, the youth from Africa, to join the efforts of other youth from Asia Pacific, Latin America and the Caribbean, Europe and North America, working on other issues like related issues like climate change, water, desertification, pollution, but also from other sectors, from arts to engineering to all the sectors that you can think of, but also to join efforts of other generations in tackling the planetary crisis, as you just said. Working with other generations is also part of this challenge. So continue to be active, continue to diffuse this energy and strengthen your professional and friendly bonds all over the region and across sectors and across borders, and continue to make African voices heard loudly and clearly at all levels. I applaud the Global Biodiversity Network and the African Wildlife Foundation for making this African Youth Summit possible. We look forward to working with you all on the road to 2050, a world where present and future generations will live in harmony with nature, just like Simangele just said. So thank you very much for this opportunity to join you, and thank you very much for presenting the outcomes. I'm very much looking forward to working with you on the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chantal. And also, please pass the greetings of African youth to Elizabeth Mrema, and also for finding time yourself to join us today and sharing those powerful messages to us in this summit. So we say thank you again, and also thank you to the Secretariat of the CBD. So delegates, at this point, if you can allow me, I'll do a summary. But just in case you have any question or comment, please feel free to put it on the chat box and then we'll direct it to the speakers. I can see on the chat box, in the Q&A, Michael has put a question. It's a comment actually, in terms of how innovative he became using beekeeping and also to generate income to himself. So this is about green entrepreneurship and protecting our, also safeguarding our protected areas. There's always a saying that says the moment the bees die or are wiped out of this world, also life will also disappear. So I think the small things that we do collectively play a critical role in terms of protecting and also conserving the environment. And as the youth currently, in Africa, we accept that there's limited opportunity and green entrepreneurship is a good avenue in terms of getting revenue. So at this point, I'll just do a brief summary in terms of what we've discussed today. And I'll start with a breakdown of what Kevin gave us in terms of day one, whereby we looked at the GBF and then also showcasing of the side of HON. And then day two was about looking at the challenges and opportunities that are present. Day three was an opportunity presented in biodiversity. We looked at the economy, multilateral negotiations, and the dialogue that are ongoing. And then Kevin also gave us an action in terms of the next steps from this webinar. So what are we going to do next? And the first step will be about doing a youth action plan. And then there will also be a sessions on capacity building. And then you mentioned that there will be an annual youth summit. And then thereafter, it will lead to resource mobilization, whereby we can, all of us, we can do support, we can be able to support our collective actions as youth in Africa. And then thereafter, Simangele challenged us to take responsibility in our collective action and the role that we need to play in biodiversity conservation in Africa as African youth. And then Simangele also mentioned that we are in a transition and we need to take initiative from this moment as we forge ahead. And then Simangele, and I think all of us can allude that the African Wildlife Foundation has played a very supportive role alongside the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And also Simangele noted the initiatives that AWF is doing, which includes supporting 50 young people to APAC. That's the African Protected Area Congress. And if you haven't registered, please visit the website and get registered for the Congress. We really need to show up as African youth there. And then the initiative that AWF has taken up in terms of training 15 young policy fellows through the Charkwall program. And later on also Simangele mentioned about the Mkapa Wildlife Photography Awards, which gives African youth the opportunity to showcase their talent, but also using photography to tell stories and also generating income. Thereafter, Simangele also mentioned about the labs that, the media labs and the trainings of journalists that AWF is doing. So finally, Chantel from the CBD Secretariat also was able to give us, to also challenge us to keep the momentum as youth and also become agents of innovative transformation, and then active participation going forward, and then positive impact that, and in terms of leaving a positive impact that will be felt for generations to come. And then Chantel also mentioned that as we talk about partnerships, we should also look at cross-continental partnerships and also sectoral partnerships if we really need to get a meaningful impact. So with that, I will be handing it over to Priska to lead us to the next session. But you are reminded that we have booths going on, and if you can also take note and engage in those booths, And my final say is that we have a role to play as African youth. And just to echo Simangele's word, that what you are doing counts. Every small action counts. And that's if we want to make a positive contribution to biodiversity in Africa and also living in harmony with nature. And just to mention that the booths will be open for the next 2 weeks. And you also are reminded that the presentation from the summit will be made available to all registered summit delegates. And then you are encouraged to use the hashtag that's hashtag AYSB2022 and tag the summit organizers, that's GYBN Africa and the African Wildlife Foundation on Twitter and any others across all other social media handles. And then in case you missed any of the sessions during the week, you can utilize the playback option on AirMeet to rewatch. And then the booths are still open for the next 2 weeks. With that, I'll hand it over to Priska and say that let's keep the fire burning and continue spreading the message that biodiversity for Africa is really important and our collective efforts counts. So thank you for finding time to join us all through the 3 days. And over to you, Priska.
Thank you so much, Janvan, for being such a great host. And thank you also to the speakers. Right now, we'll just give maybe 1 or 2 people, if you're interested in coming on and making a statement or just giving feedback or just repeating something that you learned and want everyone else to know, you can just raise your hand and we'll allow you and we'll give you the space. Okay, so I see a hand by Mwindi. So please go ahead.
Yes, sorry, the Zoom was rejoining as a panelist. I'd like to thank the organizing and also the steering committee not left behind of this summit. And I'd also like to appreciate that this summit, we have seen youths as majority of the speakers that we interacted with from the first day to the last day. This was observed really well from my side that you brought young youth speakers at the end. And I'll also like to love, during this summit, we didn't leave the marine discussion out of the summit. Yesterday, we really had a wide topics on marine and the blue economy. And I'll also like to urge my fellow youths, we work on this survey. If we youths come strong on these position papers, our leaders will give us space. We are on the table during these discussions. And I'm happy for the last session that was made by Innocent on smart advocacy, because I've really understood more on the CBD processes. I know I've been in different virtuals, also Elizabeth Morema being present, but it is through this summit that I've understood more and how to interact in the summit. So thank you very much and be blessed. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mwindi, for those remarks. And we do appreciate that you did learn a lot. And this was why this session was, we had it on the last day, like after learning about the CBD and all these other agreements, how do we as young people engage? How do we influence policy? Because it is sometimes a very challenging thing to do. And we are grateful that you did learn something, and I hope it's all the same for everyone as well.